this lady here. So if I wanted to cut her out, we took a look at channel masks, and we could go the channel mask route. If we went with the blue channel, again, you know, she's got red hair, so it's pretty light in the red channel. If we go to the blue channel, looks pretty good. Duplicate that, Command L, pull this part up until we get a relatively dark edge around the outside. Again, it's not going to be perfect, but it's pretty good. Pull this down until we get white around the outside. And that could be loaded up as a selection. But the Refine Edge command, not the Refine Edge, it used to be called Refine Edge. If you're on an older version of Photoshop, it'll be called Refine Edge. The Select and Mask command. Instead of a channel mask, we could also, as we decided before, go under Quick Select. And I could go either route. I could select the background. And if it takes too much, we can hold down the Option key and subtract from the selection. Or we could go the other route and we could select the inside, select the subject that we want to keep. In this case, it doesn't matter that much whether we choose the inside or the outside, except it did get more than I wanted. I used the Quick Select tool again, that little paintbrush with the little dotted line around it, and I just kind of painted around the inside until she was roughly selected. Now, does that make a really good selection? It doesn't. But we did take a look at ways of fixing that up. If I give it a layer mask, and we go in here and we go, well, that's a really nasty selection. Aha! With the layer mask selected, I could go under Select, Select and Mask, and there's that radius again. Right now it's at 0, and you can see absolutely nothing is being done to that edge. It's white on the inside, black on the outside with the edge around here. If I crank this up, I don't know, 20, 30-ish, look at that. Now it's looking, in this case, 36 pixels to the inside and the outside of that edge to try to figure out what's background and what's foreground. So it says, oh, this looks like it's in the inner part here, this kind of red color. I see a lot down here, so I'll include that as the visible part. And then it says, oh, down here, this kind of beigey stuff, I see a lot of that on the outside, so this must be invisible. And if we do a before, there's where we started, there's where we ended up. Now, I could crank this radius way up, tell it, look, even into here, oh, look, it's starting to get that. But we'll start getting problems, well, you know, things like this, where it says, oh, look at this beigey color. This looks more like the background than the foreground. So we don't want to take that too far, but we also don't want this to be beige. What do we do about that again? Look at this tool here, the Refine Edge brush. If I were to paint it over this, I'm telling it, use this in your calculation. Okay, I hit the cheek. We'll deal with that later. None of these, like I said, are going to get absolutely perfect layer masks. This will be easy enough to clean up after the fact. And same thing up here. This should be background. I'll paint over it. Include that in your calculation, in your radius. And if I show the edge, you can see that 29 pixel radius. And here, where I told it, include this. Up on the top here, I know that there's some of that beige background down there. If I paint over it, I tell it, include that beige background in your radius. And it shows that as background. Here's that beige background. Include that in your radius, and it shows the transparency. So see if you can get her cut out. And if there's stray hairs that you know are going outside of this radius, paint over top of that as well, and it should see them and include them in that radius. Yeah, guys, don't think you're going to get a perfect selection. Again, like there'll be the areas, like on the face here, where there's a little bit of, you know, problem stuff. What do we do about that? I'm just going to click on the layer mask or Option click, and I can see, oh, that's a problem. And it does. I don't have to be looking at the layer mask. This makes it easy. Well, okay, I have a selection tool. I want a paintbrush. Makes it easy to see where the problem areas are, but we can do it while we're looking at the layer mask as well. And you can see it just paints that solidity back in, because you don't want partly invisible people. Another thing you might end up with, well, look at this. She's partly invisible along the edge of the shoulder here. I'm going to take a look at this layer mask. I'm going to Option click on it. Oh, look at that little bit of gray along there. Does that look familiar? Grab my lasso tool. I got a bit of a feather radius. Select this. Levels, Command L. See that little ridge there? That's that bit of gray. If I take this down to here, cleans that up. Hit OK. Look around the hair. Look at this. This is light reflecting off her hair, but I can see the checkerboard pattern. I can see transparency through there. I could go in with a paintbrush. Whoops, that would be wrong. I could go in with a paintbrush and try to paint it back in. But if it's all throughout this whole area, watch this. Grab my lasso tool, select. And the problem is, we've got those little bits of gray in there. If I did levels and pulled this white point down, see those bits of gray disappear? And watch this. We don't even have to be looking at the layer mask. Command L, I can see the histogram of the layer mask, but I'm seeing those transparent bits. Watch what happens when I make those gray areas turn white. So we can always modify layer masks. There's nothing permanent about them, okay? If there was an area that was a little bit too sharp, let's say it was getting a little bit jaggy around in here, I could even take my little blur tool, a bit of a large brush there, and I could blur that edge. Sometimes you find when you cut something out, it's like, oh, it's looking really kind of jaggy. Just a little bit of blurring on it can help make it look a little bit more convincing. And this is all it's doing. Look at that. It's just blurring the layer mask. Okay, I overdid it. Guys, when you're compositing things together, think about what you actually need to cut out and don't. Like the moon back there looks like it's cut out, you know, and it matches that black background, but if I pull it in front of the Earth, I didn't actually cut it out. It was on a black background, but since so was the Earth, it didn't really matter, as long as it was going behind the Earth. So when you're trying to figure out what you need to cut out and what you don't need to cut out, sometimes it's a little simpler than you might think.